Warning, this game contains spoilers for Killer 7. Go play it right now or forever hold your peace. It's literally been 9 years.
There are even less people who believe in gaming auteurs than there are who believe games are art, but at the same time, their presence is sort of undeniable.
It's impossible to separate Metal Gear Solid from Hideo Kojima, or Bioshock from Ken Levine, and it's good that you don't, because games like that, with this singular artistic vision, are so much more complex and often carry deeper meaning than games with a more democratic creative process. Hey man.
And then you get games like Killer 7, the absolutely insane Western debut of Japanese auteur Suda51, which was released as part of the legendary Capcom 5 for the Nintendo Gamecube and was eventually ported to PS2.
It's a game with many layers, and much of this luchador-obsessed director's intended meaning is left open to interpretation, but most people can agree that in its most basic sense, Killer 7 tells the story of two gods, one of the East and one of the West, who are eternally locked in a struggle for control over world culture.
The God of the West is an aging assassin named Harman Smith, and most of the gameplay revolves around his team of assassins, the Killer 7, attempting to eradicate the Heaven Smile cult, whose virus-infected kamikaze zombies are hell-bent on taking over the world for Kunlan, God of the East.
But who are the Killer 7? Dan, Kaede, Khan, Coyote, Kevin, and Mask, all with Harman's last name Smith. Are they all the multiple personalities of Harman Smith's earthbound body? What's the secret behind their de facto leader, Garcian Smith? And if they're just imaginary, where did they come from? Were they ever real? We're gonna do our best to answer all these questions on this week's Super Analysis Brothers, Who Are the Killer 7?
Alright. There seems to be a bizarre duality to the character of Harman Smith. On the one hand, he's an omnipotent god whose eternal struggle with Eastern god Kunlan plays out on a chessboard. But on the other, he has a physical earthbound form who, perhaps in line with the game's theme of yin and yang, is a traitor who works for Kunlan. After all, isn't it already ironic enough that God Kunlan is an evil life-bringer while God Harman is a virtuous murderer?
Anyway, this earthbound Harman was the principal at Coburn Elementary School in Seattle, which was secretly a training ground for turning American children into assassins for Japanese shadow government. It's crazy, I know, but follow me, it'll almost make sense eventually.
Harman's protege at the school was a 13-year-old boy named Amir Parkrainer, who was eventually hired by Kunlan to kill God Harman and his team of weird assassins. At the time, the Killer 7 were all real people being used as the physical hand of the deity Harman Smith, and since it's also sort of what Amir is too, it's almost like Harman was hired to kill himself. Maybe it's a commentary on the futility of trying to end ideological conflict? Uh-oh, I'm going into an analysis spiral.
Stay focused, man, we'll get there. So, Amir is hired to eliminate Harman and the Killer 7 at the Union Hotel, and weirdly enough, he just does it. He kills all of the assassins and temporarily neutralizes God Harman too. However, Amir thinks that the Harman he killed was his mentor, and he's so upset he decides to kill himself too. In response, God Harman imprisons his dangerous self within his body and resurrects Amir as Garcian Smith, whose multiple personalities now protects his dormant soul and act as the new Killer 7.
This game is weird. So now think back to the chessboard. When a pawn, and let's be honest, Amir is Kunlan's pawn, gets to the other end of the board, it becomes a queen with all the capabilities of all the other chess pieces on the board. Well, except for the knights, but how about you come up here to analyze this game?
Anyway, now, since the Killer 7 have been hired to kill Kunlan and the Heaven Smiles, and the Killer 7 are Amir, and Amir is Kunlan's pawn, we get an echo of the earlier yin-yang contradiction. It's the game's way of explaining that the cultural conflict is cyclical, with no end in sight.
Yeah, I mean, even after Kunlan wakes up evil Harman and Garcian remembers who he is, nothing changes. He tries to get revenge by killing both of them and ending the secret war between Japan and the US, but 100 years later, it starts all over again in Shanghai.
Culture is a circle, yin and yang, the Ouroboros. Anyone can be seen as the good guys depending on what you believe in. Killer 7 is a game about how often people change their minds. Thanks for watching Super Analysis Bros.